Hey everyone! Today I want to provide you all with a little teaser for Morningstar, the fantasy role-playing game. I made a TTRPG. It is available on itch.io. It is pay what you want. The suggested price right now is at €5, but don't feel bad downloading it for free and checking it out. Because while it is a finished game, you can play it. It is in a completely playable state. There's still some playtesting I want to do. There's still some things I maybe want to add in the future. So while it is complete, it is also a work in progress. So what is Morningstar? Morningstar is a fantasy role-playing game inspired by old school RPGs, especially Tunnels and Trolls, but also the original edition of the oldest role-playing game, and also CRPGs like the Wizardry and Might and Magic series of games. So the design ethos behind this game was to make a game with an old school feel to it, but make it a little more accessible, a little more welcoming, a little less deadly. It's still deadly, but it's not as dickish as some of these games tend to be. And also to provide a lot of room for player expression. There's a lot of ways to make a character your own. And I'm gonna go over that. In this little teaser, I'm just gonna go over the basics and character creation and show off the equipment and the magic, and I'll let you find out the rest for yourself. So first of all, we have this beautiful cover art drawn by my girlfriend, Lara. It's really wonderful. It really captures the appeal of going into a dungeon and not knowing what scary little things are gonna await you around the corner. I really love it a lot. By Jessica Lynn Engels, that's me. We got the credit and licensing information. I have all the artists listed down there. We have Jess Shields and Jason Clover, and John D. Batten, who is whose art is public domain, and Luigi Castellani. You can find Jess Shields stuff on TTRPG. That's where I bought some of their stuff. It's really nice. Jason Clover is another artist. Jason provides artwork for free on his website. You should check it out, which is really nice, which helped me a lot with this game. Again, John D. Batten is an artist in the public domain, and Luigi Castellani you can find on itch.io. Alright, here we have the table of contents. Just have a brief look over that. We got the introduction, we got character creation, we got equipment and magic. Those are the chapters we're gonna go over today. Then we got the adventuring rules and the combat rules, and those should be pretty familiar to those who are familiar with OSR style or old school RPGs. But there are some unique things in there as well, but I'm not gonna go over those in this video. We got a creature compendium with a bunch of sample creatures based on creature type, like you have undeads, you have constructs, you have beasts, stuff like that. We got a section on treasure and magic items and the character sheet. And one thing I want to add in the future is like a referee guide, a little guide on how to do your own campaigns, make your own dungeons, stuff like that. Alright, we got the typical introduction of what's a role-playing game. I'm not gonna go over all of this in detail. Also wish this down here would go away. And here we have a section on what I think makes Morningstar unique. It says on here it's a rules-light, old-school game. It's mostly about going into dungeons or other dangerous places, bashing enemies, collecting treasure, becoming more experienced. So if you want a game that's like all about like intricate social encounters and political intrigue, this is probably not the game for you. This is like classic fantasy adventuring stuff. That doesn't mean you can't do role-playing and do social stuff. It's just there's no like rules that really support like something like a court intrigue campaign or something like that. It's possible it's just not the main focus. So character creation is semi-random, you roll your stats, but a point buy method is also provided if you prefer that. Morningstar can be challenging, but it is less focused on resource management than other games. So characters are a little more durable, they have more room to cast spells and stuff like that. And while something like carrying capacity and equipment weight is provided, it is not necessary. It can be hand-waved. It can be handled via just common sense, if you prefer that, if you don't want to be meticulous about tracking that. But if you do, the option is there. Morningstar has a unified dice rolling mechanic, utilizing only 6-sided dice, yes. So we'll go over that in a bit. Spells have a scalable power level. So yeah, you have options when you're casting your spells. You can cast that heal spell on power level 1 if you just wanna, like, mend a small wound, and if a character's like grievously injured, you can be like, okay, I wanna spend a lot of my spell points to really get them back up on their feet. Stuff like that. So you have a lot more flexibility with your spell casting if you wanna do that. Character creation is also intended to be very flexible, giving players a lot of rooms to express themselves through their characters. There are 12 different kindreds provided and 4 different classes, which doesn't sound like a lot, at least in terms of the classes, but you can then further define your character with a bunch of traits, and we'll go into that. So essentially what that means, you can be a warrior, but you can also have some limited spell casting. You can be a wizard, but through traits you can also make them a little more durable, be able to wear armor and wield more weapons and stuff like that. You have a non-linear character progression. So instead of something like a lot of old school D&D things where you just have like, this is your class, this is what they get at this experience level, you decide which of your character's attributes to improve, and you can get new traits for your characters as well. And characters also gain experience in a variety of different ways, and we'll go over that as well. Morningstar adds optional science fiction elements that referees may use to pepper their fantasy worlds for some unique flavor. This is mostly where the inspiration from Might and Magic comes from, and also some of the later Wizardry games as well. I really love fantasy worlds that have like a sci-fi touch that comes into play later on in the game. I want referees to have the ability to give their characters ray guns for which they can use to shoot at dragons and stuff like that. It's optional, but it's there, and I want to flesh that out in the future even more. Then we have a word on inclusivity. This basically just says that you should have a tolerant and inclusive gaming table where everyone is welcome, and that you should take care to keep Nazis and fascists and bigots out of the hobby, which I don't think should be a controversial opinion, but there are people who beg to differ, so I felt it important to include this. Got a note on dice, it's all just basic stuff. And then we get to the core mechanics. You have ability checks. This is a very simple resolution mechanic. You roll 3d6, you add a modifier, you compare it to a difficulty set by the referee. This is how pretty much all checks work in Morningstar. It's very simple. And I decided on 3d6 as a base dice rolling mechanic because it creates a nice bell curve. Unlike a d20, which is very swingy and random, the 3d6 means that if your character is good at something, they are pretty likely to succeed when they have to make a check for it. Which I think makes more sense than a character just randomly fumbling something a lot, even if they're good at it. We got attack rolls. Works the same way, you add 3d6, but this time you add either your melee attack bonus or ranged attack bonus, depending. And then you compare that to the enemy's defense. So defense is how likely a target is to avoid damage, basically. It's not synonymous with something like armor class in other RPGs. Armor instead reduces incoming damage. And then we got saves. They work the exact same way as ability checks, except that they are passive instead of active. Like if you're being poisoned, if you're trying to resist a certain spell, that's when you roll a save. But it's also 3d6 plus modifier against a target difficulty. And here we got some nice art by Jeshields. Check them out and try through RPG. And yeah, that's when we get on to character creation. You should read through the whole chapter before starting this process. We got 7 prime attributes. We got secondary attributes, and they are pretty easy to calculate. I was thinking of making them a little more intricate, but I wanted this game to be like very easy to pick up. So they're not hard to calculate at all. You just add a bonus from the prime attribute most of the time. We got 12 different kinds of kindred. We'll go over these. We got the 4 classes. And then characters get 3 starting traits, which are in addition to the traits they get from their class. You get starting equipment based on your class. You can select starting spells if you can cast them. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Got the prime attributes, we got strength, we got vitality, we got dexterity, we got agility. I decided to split dexterity and agility into 2, because otherwise, if I just had dexterity for a lot of things, I felt it would be too powerful. And they do different stuff. Dexterity is like your hand-eye coordination and precision, and agility is more like your acrobatics, your body control, stuff like that. Get your perception, your intelligence, your charisma. I'm not gonna go over this stuff in detail. This is just to like show off the game a little bit. And you can read this on your own time. But I'm gonna let it linger a little more. Here we get some nice art by John D. Batten. Yeah, determining prime attributes, the classic method is rolling 4d6 for each stat and ignoring the lowest die. And you can assign all of the results freely to any stat you want. There is no rolling in order. Although, of course, if you want that, you could house rule it in. The modern method is a point-buy system if you want to give your characters a lot of freedom to do that. That's just preference. Some groups prefer to roll their stats, some groups prefer point buy. I prefer rolling. I think point buy can lead to players min-maxing their characters and thinking of them in too much of a mechanical way. But it's up to you. Some people get really frustrated by rolling their attributes, so I wanted to have both options there. You got secondary attributes. This is stuff like your melee attack bonus, your ranged attack bonus, your initiative, your defense, your hit points, your spell points, your carrying capacity, which again is optional. I'll go over this later, but you can use it. And then we have luck. Luck is like a meta currency that you can use to reroll a failed check, attack roll, or save. You can use it to like really get the maximum amount of damage out of an attack, to also like, if you want to deliver like the final blow and your characters are all exhausted and the combat is drawing to an end and you really want this attack to matter, then you can use that. And you can also use it to save your character from dying, but if you do that, you reduce your maximum luck by 1 permanently, so this is like a limited option. And then we get to the kindred, the people inhabiting the campaign world. And speaking of the campaign world, there is no official campaign world for Morningstar. Morningstar is just like the RPGs it's inspired by, like original D&D and Tunnels and Trolls. It's supposed to be a toolbox that referees can use to make their own worlds. That was really important to me, to have it be like flexible and not like, oh, we have like something really specific here. And speaking of that, this is not... You don't have to use all of these 12 kindred. We can get over them really quick. We have the classic Tolkien character types. We got humans, elves, dwarves, halflings. Gnomes are not Tolkien, but whatever. And orcs. Those are like the classic like D&D kindreds, I would say. And then we have some more unusual picks like lizard folk, we got dog people, we got cat people, we got minotaurs, we got the Krimelkin, which are anthropomorphic raccoons or opossums, and we got the merfolk. So I wanted to provide a wide variety of kindreds. But again, this is a toolbox, you don't have to use all of these. If you're like, okay, I want to do more of a classic Tolkien-style fantasy world, then you can just ignore the lower half of this, and maybe the gnomes too. You can just be like, okay, my player characters are just gonna be like the first 4. You just got humans, elf, dwarves, and halflings. Or you could be like, oh, I really like the Ultima games. I wanna make something like that, a fantasy world where all the player characters are humans only. Then you just use the humans. And of course you can go in the complete opposite direction, be like, oh, this list is cool, but this is really missing some anthropomorphic spider people, or what have you. And then you can make your own kindred based on the ones provided here. You can either reflavor one, or you could just make up your own and use these as like a reference. You know? You got options, is all I'm saying. You don't have... This is not the gospel, this is not the word of God. You can make this your own. Alright, we got descriptions for the different kindreds, and again they're kept relatively vague because there is no fixed campaign world. Got some more nice art here by Jess Shields. This dancing orc-looking person looks really cool. Oh, sorry. And then we get to the classes. So classes roughly define the character's role in the party. But they're maybe not... They may seem restrictive at first, but if you add in traits, which we'll get to later, you can really make the character your own. So the 4 classes provided are the warrior, who are, as you might expect, good at fighting. They get +1 to melee attack bonus, they can wear any armor. In fact, they are the only class able to wear heavy armor. And I just saw this is a little misaligned here. I'm gonna fix that. They start with a lot of weapon proficiencies and stuff like that. And yeah, weapon proficiency is a trait. You can get more of these if you want. And it just means, it doesn't give you a bonus with the weapon, it just means you are trained in using that weapon. You can use it without penalty, essentially. Then you got the hunter, who is your ranged fighter. They're good with bows and crossbows and slings and all the kind of stuff. They're like your Robin Hood or Strider type of character, I guess. Then you get the rogue. They are your thieves, your ninjas, your spies. They're good at sneaking, they get backstabbing ability, they're good with throwing weapons and picking locks, disarming traps, stuff like that. And then you get the wizard, who can barely use any weapons, can't use any armor, but they have access to all 6 schools of magic, and they're the only class that can cast spells at the highest power level. So if you want to go all in on magic, that is the class to go for. But again, if you think the wizard is too squishy, you can make them more durable with traits. And speaking of which, first we got the class descriptions rather. And I provided some examples here, like your warrior can be lots of different things. They can be a noble knight, an honorable samurai, a fearless Viking. You can flavor these however you feel is appropriate. And then you got traits. Traits, I guess, are kind of like feats in other games. Some of the classes already start with some traits, like the rogue starts with the skullduggery trait, the hunter starts with the bushcraft trait. And yeah, these are just things you can use to further define your character and flesh them out and make up for weaknesses their class might have or their kindred might have. So you start with 3 of these traits. You can freely pick and choose. New traits can be learned in-game, but only... but it has to make sense in the fiction. You can't just be like, oh, I spend 200 experience points, which is what a new trait would cost in-game, and then I just have the trait. You need to find someone in the campaign world who can teach you the trait, or learn it through some other means at the referee's discretion, so that it makes sense in the fiction. Yeah, these are the different traits. There's stuff like increased armor proficiency. You can make it so that your wizard can wear armor, for example. Or weapon proficiency. You can make it so that your rogue is also proficient in axes. Or limited spellcasting. You can make a paladin type character by picking a warrior and then giving them the ability to cast a water magic, which includes a healing spell. Stuff like that. Inspiration, which basically turns your character into kind of like a bard that can inspire people and give them a bonus on ability checks and such. You can give your... I don't know, you can have your wizard be like a druid who has bushcraft as well, because they're like loving nature and stuff like that. The possibilities are extensive. Not endless, but extensive. You got your starting equipment. Everyone gets an adventurous bundle, which includes some basic stuff, your basic utility stuff, and then you get some equipment based on your class. You get starting spells if your character can cast spells. And yeah, there's some other stuff here too. You got languages and areas of expertise based on your character's intelligence. So areas of expertise, that's just like things that your character is knowledgeable about. For example, they can know a lot about heraldry or history or religion or geography, astronomy, etiquette, things like that. Whatever you feel is appropriate for your character. And these are mostly for flavor, but they can obviously have a benefit in the fiction too. Like, I don't know, maybe if there's like an invading army and people don't know who's invading, who are these guys? Maybe if your character knows heraldry, they can be like, wait a second, I recognize that banner. Stuff like that. So yeah, pretty simple process. Character advancement. Characters get experience points, and the way leveling works is essentially you can increase your prime attributes by spending experience points at a rate of the new score times 10. So if you have a strength of 8 and you want to increase that to 9, you have to spend 90 experience points. And you can only do that when you're like in a safe environment where you have like the time to like hone your skills in peace. You can't just do that like in the middle of a dungeon or something like that. Get your character level, which is used for some spells and stuff like that. And that's just for every 100 experience points spent, you gain a level up essentially. They don't really do anything on their own, they're supposed to just be like a general measurement of your character's power. Now, gaining experience. This is another thing where the Tunnels of and Trolls influences shine through, I think. You gain experience for failing or succeeding on a save or ability check. So if your referee asks you to roll something, and doesn't matter if you do it or not, you get experience. Because obviously we all also learn from our mistakes, not just our successes. So even if you fail a roll really badly, you at least get the consolation that you'll get some experience from that. And the experience is based on how hard the difficulty of the check is. You also get experience for defeating an enemy. And the stronger the enemy, the more XP that is. And the XPs are listed in the sample section for the creature compendium later on. Now, defeating doesn't necessarily mean killing. Depending on what the referee decides, it could also be when an enemy surrenders, or if you outwit a super powerful foe and stuff like that. Also, it should be obvious, but it is mentioned here, you do not get XP for just like slaughtering non-hostile creatures or people. There's no reward for being a murder tourist. And another way to gain experience is by clearing a dungeon level, because I wanted to reward exploration. That was very important to me, and the definition of dungeon is obviously a little loose. If you're in like a spooky, dangerous forest, that should also count as a dungeon, probably. Yeah, and there's like a little section down here too, that referees should make sure not to have characters roll an ability check or save for every mundane action, because again, they give experience. They should be special. Most of the time, if it makes sense for your characters to succeed at something, just let them succeed. Don't let them roll for every little thing. Then we go into equipment. There's a section on weight where I again say that tracking weight, whether or not you want to do that meticulously, is optional, but I'm still giving carrying capacity and weight so that the referee has like measurements to like determine, oh, okay, maybe you're carrying a little too much just looking over your gear and stuff like that. But you don't necessarily need to meticulously track every little piece of equipment. But if you want to, you can. Some people really enjoy this type of inventory management in old school games and logistics involved with that. Others just find that tedious, and I just wanted to make it clear that this is like optional. You can do it, but you don't have to. It depends on your group's preferences. We've got weapon size, weapon categories, and we got a list of all the weapons. And the categories listed is basically if you're proficient in short blade, you're good at these. You can use these. I also have variants listed for every weapon. These are not extensive. If you come up with your own and the referee is fine with it, then you can go with that as well. But this is just to tell players, hey, maybe your longsword doesn't have to be a European longsword. Maybe your character, you envision your character as more of a samurai, so you turn that into a katana. Stuff like that. And same with armor down here. And again, these are misaligned. I need to fix that. That's probably fine. I'm gonna upload a new version after this where I fix that. Yeah, you get light armor, medium armor, heavy armor, shields and helmets, and these can also be reflavored. And again, armor doesn't make you harder to hit. Armor reduces incoming damage. So the armor class is subtracted from the damage that you take. Ooh. We got transportation, rules for like buying or renting animals like horses and camels, or boats, and there's even airships. And I wanted to include some more exotic things here as well, so there's also stats for passage on a giant turtle, or passage on a giant eagle, if you wanna include that in your game. Got the classic tools and adventuring gear if you wanna purchase some stuff beyond what you get for your starting equipment, that is listed here. Arcane and alchemical utensils, you can buy like a crystal ball for scrying, things like that. Prices for services, like what does a meal in a tavern cost? What does it cost to get a magical item identified? What does it cost for a wizard to teach me a spell? What does it cost to have a curse removed at a temple? Stuff like that. Very useful to have. And we got a little section on futuristic equipment. In case you want to include things like ray guns, or laser blades, or stun guns, or hover bikes in your fantasy game, which I love science fantasy. I love when fantasy does this thing. It's like, oh, there's this hidden dungeon underground and it's actually like an abandoned spaceship or something. I love that stuff. Not everyone does. This is completely optional. And we got this really, really cool art by Luigi Castellani. Again, you can find his stuff on itch.io. Highly recommended. And then we get to the magic section. Yeah, you can learn spells from a teacher. You start with 4 spells if you're a wizard or have the limited spellcasting trait. You can copy spells from a spell book if you want to learn new, or from a spell scroll, but that will destroy the spell on the scroll. And one feature that was very important to me is the concept of spell power levels. Spells are scalable. You can cast them at different power levels to make them more or less powerful. And that is limited by different things. Like people with limited spellcasting trait can only cast up to power level 4. It is also limited by your intelligence. So if you're a wizard and you roll like a 14 intelligence, you can only roll to... You can only scale your spells up to power level 4. But again, you can increase your intelligence with experience. It's not like old school D&D where that is a fixed number. So you have always something to work towards, to level towards. And yeah, spell points replenish relatively quickly at a rate of 1 SP per hour rested. And we got the 6 schools of magic. We got the 4 classic elements, fire, air, water, and earth. And we got mind and matter. And we got some more cool arts by Jeshiels as well. So here's all the spells from the School of Fire. These are usually more offensively oriented, but again, it's kind of fast and loose with the elements. Just because it's fire doesn't mean it doesn't also have defensive stuff. So you are a little more flexible. So you have also stuff like heat resistance or utility spells like light, things like that. Just gonna go over these a little slowly. We got spells from the School of Air. Some of these you might recognize from other old school games like Cloud of Death. But I tried to put my own spin on all of them. You get invisibility, you can levitate, you can cast lightning on a person or silence them. You got School of Water, which is a little more defensive. You got some curative spells like Cure Melody, which can cure poison or diseases. You can get the heal spell. You can cover the ground in a sheet of ice to make people slip on it. You can raise and lower the water level. You can breathe underwater, walk on water. Things like that. And then you got earth magic, which is speaking with animals, controlling plants, speaking with the dead, holding people, petrifying them. Creating a structure out of stone. You can make walls, you can make bridges, you can make a statue of a guy, whatever you want. You can make tunnels, so there's like lots of utility spells. You can raise the dead, because they're raising from the earth, you see, so it's earth elemental, obviously. Get spells from the School of Mind, which is where you get like a lot of like scrying stuff. Stuff like that, like a lot of like... the name eludes me, the word eludes me, but yeah, you get what I mean. You get like clairvoyance, detect magic, dispel magic, stuff like that. You got illusion magic, telekinesis, telepathy, teleport, things of that nature. This is basically your ESP type stuff. And then spells from the School of Matter is like influencing the world, basically transforming things and stuff like that. You can animate objects, you can completely disintegrate something, you can lock or unlock things, you can shrink people, but there's also stuff like resurrection or restoration. So it's not just the School of Water that has healing magic. You can transform creatures or objects, things of that nature. And yeah, this is kind of where I want to stop the teaser. I hope I gave you a good impression of what Morningstar is about, of how character creation works, of what type of adventures you can expect when you play this game. And yeah, if you're interested, please check it out. I leave the link to the itch.io page in the description below, and I'm looking forward to your feedback. And if you have any suggestions, if you have criticisms or praise, please just let me know. I would love to hear them. So yeah, thank you very much for indulging me in me showing off my hobby project that I have been working on for a very long time now. I am glad it is finally in a presentable stage, and yeah, I'll be seeing you. Thanks for your time.